Yeah. Whoa, whoa, I told my mama, Asalama, I'ma make it and never forget her. Stacking bread and stacking the cheddar. Who would've known I would've traveled off of writing letters? Who would've known I'd have a job making these instrumentals? Yeah, whoa, some days are better than others. I know I was a shoulder for the tears of my mother.
Again, one of the reasons why we decided to do this is because there's very little socialization. So there's not a lot of intergenerational communication about what postpartum life looks like, or even those struggles that Black women have during pregnancy, because you have this thing where you have to be able to do all of it. You have to do all the things. You got to be able to do all of it by yourself. And if you ask for help or if you show any vulnerability, it's a sign of weakness. And we get those same messages from mom, from grandma, from great grandma, because those are the messages that they received from past generations as well. So we're kind of trying to change that narrative, using social media as a driver for that socialization. And when you shared part of your story on that post on LinkedIn, like I read it, I sent it to my co-founder, and she was like, we have to interview her because your story is so powerful and it's unique, but it shows a great deal of resilience on your part. So, I'm going to stop talking, but I would love for you to just tell us your story.
So, my story as it pertains to the organization and what you all do, the part that kind of drawn me into your organization is that I became a first-time mom at 30 years old. That was 5 years ago. So my story starts with me finding out I was having a kid. At about 6 months pregnant, I moved in with my mom. So because I kind of needed, like, to backtrack on that, I kind of needed that support and that community, So I moved back in with my mom and my stepfather. And we began this journey of me just preparing for me to be born. My mom gave me like an extra living space in her house and everything. And I just kind of like nested and did that whole process before the baby was born. I was super excited, but fearful at the same time. And my mom just reassured me, like, you're a great person. You're so responsible. You'll do great. I can picture you as a mom. And we always talked about, me and my mom had a lot of conversations about, as soon as we found out what I was having, a girl, and we found out after my 3D ultrasound, she was super excited. She was like, we always talked about her attitude, what her personality might be, if she will be, kind of witty like me, or, what personality she would have. And we made a lot of future plans, and my mom was super excited. She was always talked about walking my daughter to preschool and kindergarten and all that. So at about, I would say around the time I was planning my baby shower, at about maybe like 7 months, 7 months going on my 8th month, my mom had a breathing issue, and she set my baby shower out. She couldn't come and everything. And she was like kind of in the bed that whole day. So it didn't subside. She ended up going to the hospital, and they saw some, they did like fluid testing on her lungs, and they saw some cancerous cells on her lungs, basically. So then that dynamic kind of shifted. It went from excitement to like kind of fearful, because I esteem my mom as like kind of like my only support, really, as far as like me being very trusting and who I could trust just to, share that motherhood with me, like that community. Right. I didn't feel like we had a strong like overall family community. So my mom was like, it. So when she got that diagnosis, it kind of took me for a whirlwind, and it actually ended up being perfect timing that I moved back in with her, because now I had to take on this role of kind of like caregiver, because my stepdad, he worked full time. It was like kind of like a roller coaster, really, really fast. Everything moved really, really fast after she went to the hospital, and it transitioned from us being excited, my mom you know, she was planning her schedule, like how we would, how she put her schedule together to like be there for her grandchild and everything. It went from that to now me trying to transition into, okay, how I'm going to be there to support you and be one of your caretakers while you're going through this process.
Right.
So now, fast forward to, I took it kind of hard, her not being present, you know, not being able to be there at my baby shower. I was, like I said, I was scared. I was like, oh, you know, and I was actually at the baby shower just thinking about like what was going on, like what's going on,
Right.
or whatever. So then the big day comes for me to have my daughter. And I'm in you know, full steam caretaker mode. So I'm not even concerned about, I'm like, she's in my belly, she's safe. Let me just, you know, help my mom and do everything I need to do. By this time, my mom had been removed from work. She was actually bedridden by the hospital. She had to stay on bed rest and everything. So now this role is full steam, where myself getting up, showering, everything, and then, you know, cooking her meals, doing everything for her, getting her medication and everything while she's starting this new process of like cancer treatment. So the day comes where it's time for me to have my daughter, and I actually I was so scared. I had been having contractions that whole day, like so uncomfortable, but I was so scared to be like, I think it's time, because I was trying to push the time back until my stepfather got off work. Right. So that's where it started to kind of like, and hindsight looking back, like I never had that time to like really, it was always someone else's needs before mine. You know what I'm saying? So I held off as fast as, you know, as long as I could. I'm like, oh, you know, I'm just enduring all this pain, all these contractions. But my mom is like, you're sweating. What's going on with you? Are you okay? She's like, you're wobbling. And mind you, she's a nurse. So she's like seeing all the signs. Right. I'm like, no, I'm fine. I'm about to make us some lunch. So I end up making us some lunch. I ate it and I completely threw up everywhere. And she was like, no, you're about to go in labor. Yes. So she called and she was like, girl, I was like, but I can't leave you here. You know, she was like, girl, look, you can't have this baby here either. So you need to like, come on. And, you know, so we end up calling my stepfather. I get to the hospital, 8 centimeters dilated. Ooh. So I could have had my baby on the floor. Yes. So I got to the emergency room just in time. And then if there's any precursor to postpartum, and I'll kind of like, I'll revisit this later, but I did suffer from postpartum depression for a while. But if there's any precursor to postpartum depression, I think a traumatic labor and delivery is that. So yes, I'm telling this backstory to kind of get into like, you know, the precursor of this. So my mom is a nurse. Before all this, before her sickness and everything, I just knew that she would be right there watching over me and making sure I had this baby really safely, because I had dreams of, I was obsessing of not making it through my labor. So I don't know if that did it as well too. And I was reading all these statistics of like Black moms and how they're treated. And I was just really, really worried. So that kind of added to it, the fact that she was at home. You know, she was, at this time, she was recovering from her chemo treatment. So the recovery process is kind of like very, very drowsy. She's sleepy and everything. So there was no way she could be in the delivery. So I end up getting to the hospital. My daughter's dad was there, and her 2 godparents, which is my 2 best friends, was there. So I had some support, but I think I was looking for that wisdom as well as that support, because collectively, us 4, we don't have a lot of knowledge of this. Right. My labor was easy. I guess to the dynamic of from stories I hear, my labor was easy. You know, I did tear, and that's kind of like a really important point in my story because I end up hemorrhaging. So I had my daughter and everything was okay. And they transitioned me into my room, which was supposed to be like, you know, where I was in an area where I didn't need much like checking on.
Right.
And I was pretty much, they were like, you know, you pushed her out, everything is okay.
Right.
So the big part is over. I checked in with my mom. I called her other grandmother, her dad's mom, and we talked and everything. And they came in, they did the little things with my baby, and I went to sleep. And I was sleeping, and I heard my daughter, because she was in the room with me, and I heard her coughing. And I got up to like get to her, and so much blood fell on the floor of the hospital, like hit the floor, a puddle of blood. So at this time I'm panicking. I'm cleaning out my daughter's mouth. She still has like the little, you know, black stuff or whatever coming out. So I guess that's why she was coughing. But to this day, I say my daughter coughing kind of like saved my life, because I'm thinking I'm just tired from labor, and I'm thinking this is how I'm supposed to feel. Right. But this whole time I was losing so much blood because my uterus wasn't contracting. I had blood clots. So I called the nurse. The nurse rushed in. She sees the floor and she goes into a panic, and she's like, oh, you know, and now they're calling the doctors and calling everybody in. And I heard the nurse say that they were talking about how much blood I lost during my delivery. Right. And they were saying I wasn't even supposed to have been on that floor, because I lost so much blood during the delivery process. I was supposed to be on the floor where I was monitored. My blood loss was monitored. Right. So they end up doing a procedure where, mind you, I had already had stitches. I ripped a little bit, and they end up doing a procedure where they had to reach back inside of me and physically remove clots. In order to get the blood to stop. Jesus. So I would say, and it's nothing against the hospital I was at, and I just want to speak to like the prejudice that we have is like women of color and our pain tolerance. I was given medication for this procedure. They came in and gave me like pain medication. It was like, we're going to do this procedure for you. You know, and gave me the pain medication. But then I would say about 15 minutes later, they were like, you're ready. And I was like, no, I just got the pain medication. Nothing has kicked in. Right. So, and I would say, because I am a spiritual person, I am a Christian, I believe in God and Jesus Christ. I would say that day I had an angel with me, because it was an African-American nurse. She was the only African-American nurse that I had for that morning. She came in, she held my hand, and she whispered in my ear, and she said, I'm not going to let you lose your life in here. And she held my hand, and they did the procedure, and I screamed out so loud, so loud. It hurted so bad. It was very painful. The first person that did it, she was a student, a medical student. Lord. Okay. And apparently she wasn't reaching in, or she wasn't doing what she actually supposed to do. So then the actual doctor took over. She was like, move out the way. And I just felt like an experiment. I don't even know how to, like an experiment. I just felt like I was like a Thanksgiving turkey. It was like that they had completely disassociated my humanity at one point, because I was like, excuse me, what's going on? And they were like not talking to me. That the doctor was pretty much like, we have to stop the bleeding, like not addressing me. And it took that nurse to kind of like hold my hand and ground me. And she was like, and she brought like me feeling like a person back at that point. So after they was over, you know, they put the padding under me and they just monitor, like measure the pads every couple of hours to see how much blood I was losing after that.
Right.
And after that, I was just kind of like ready to go at this point. I had plans on breastfeeding my daughter and I did follow through with those plans, but the 2 lactation nurses that I had come into the room was just like, she's not latching. We're going to give you formula, kind of like discouraged me about that. So, and not to just keep, you know, resting everything on race, but they were not of my race. And I was telling them, like, you know, it's very important for me to breastfeed. Like, that's one of the things I want to do.
Right.
Because there's been so many benefits about it. They was like, well, you have to put the baby first. And if she's not latching, then you're going to have to consider other options. So I'm like, okay. So all this is like just so emotional. I'm like, this has been traumatic. I'm not being talked to like my concerns even matter. And I'm just like ready to go home at this point and, you know, get my advice from my mom. Like, I'm ready to leave.
Right.
So I get home and everything is pretty much good. And I have the worst breakdown probably moving forward up to my, and this was the situation that I spoke about on LinkedIn. It was my daughter's 1-week checkup. I had just to paint the picture for you, I had now I'm pretty much doing everything on my own. Like, my mom is telling me everything, but physically she can't do anything, you know, because she's going through her process. But she's telling me everything. I'm happy, but I'm scared. I'm like, I got this new life, you know. It's like this eerie feeling you get when you leave the hospital, and it's just like, I have to protect this thing at all, this little one at all costs. And it's like everything is like so scary. Like, I was scared to drive. I had anxiety about driving. I needed to go to the store and get her some things, get my mom some things. But I had anxiety about driving because I was just like, I got to make it back home to my infant. And I was just like, almost I turned into a person that didn't want to go outside because I felt like, okay, what if I don't come back, you know?
Right.
But so a week goes by and it comes up on her newborn, you know, her post checkup. And I had just got a new stroller that I decided to take out the box that day and put it together. And we end up have to take a Uber to the hospital, which I was really like worried about that. But the Uber driver was really nice about that. So the Uber pulls up to the hospital. I get out the car. I get the stroller out. All the wheels are attached at this point. I put my daughter in the stroller and the front wheel comes off. Like, I'm pushing the stroller and the front wheel comes off. Her car seat end up kind of falling out the stroller. This is all at the entrance of the hospital. So at this point, I'm like holding back tears at this point, but I'm not crying. I'm like physically not shedding any tears, but I'm holding back tears at this point. And I'm just like, what am I actually doing? Like, what is going on? Like, you know, this baby is going to lose her life with me. Like, that's what I was thinking. Like, I cannot do this. I really can't do this. So we get to the room and she has her, before we get to the room, we're in the waiting room. I have another breakdown inside the bathroom because I realized I forgot Pampers. I didn't have another Pamper with her. And I was just like, I forgot Pampers. How can you forget Pampers? Like, what is wrong with you? So I had a diaper bag. She was breastfeeding, so I didn't have to pack milk. She ended up latching and everything. I didn't have to pack milk, but it was like the Pampers situation. I don't know. I just felt like, am I even capable? I had questions about, should I just leave my daughter here at this hospital? I won't get in trouble if I tell them I can't do this, you know? And I think it was just like a compound of like so much trauma at that point, but I wasn't looking at it from an aerial perspective that this was everything leading up to this. I was looking at like each situation, like, okay, you're getting worse and worse with this with this parenting thing. So we get into the actual appointment with the doctor, and she had me take a survey about like my feelings after postpartum and everything. And she pretty much takes her blood pressure. And it's kind of like a factory in and out setting, because we're on Medicare at this point. They just kind of get us out, get us in. And she didn't really address me. She was like, here, well, she addressed me. She introduced herself, but she was like, here, fill out this paper. I'll be right back. So it was questions about like my mental health, what thoughts have I had, and things like that. So she comes back into the room to collect the survey, and she's like, the first time her even like really talking to me, she's like, so Mom, how have you been? And I literally just like I was like, I didn't even mean to cry. I just started bawling my eyes out. And she was like, what is going on? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? And I physically couldn't say anything. I was just crying. Then I started crying more because I'm like, she is about to call CPS. They are about to take this baby away. They are about to lock me up. Right. And I started kind of like having a small panic attack. So she's like, I'm going to give you some time. I'm going to leave out the room or whatever. You take all the time you need. She leaves out the room. So I'm still in there and I'm crying and I'm crying and I'm holding my daughter and I'm crying. And I'm like, you have to stop crying. Stop crying. So I'm trying to like clear my face, wipe my eyes, everything, trying to just like I go over to the sink. I'm trying to put water on my face and everything. And the only thing that stopped me from crying, and I feel like this is like an important thing as far as like breastfeeding. Like when my daughter started feeding, I don't know, it's like, it gave me like this boost of energy. And I was just like making eye contact with her. And I was just like, and I just stopped crying. So I wiped my face and everything. I finished nursing her. And the doctor came back in. She's like, what's going on? And I was like, well, today the front wheel came off the stroller and I forgot to bring her Pampers and everything. And she was like, and she was looking, she was nodding her head and she was like, is everything okay at home? And I'm like, it is. I mean, I know I have a new baby. I know being a new mom is tough. It is at home, but I have another dynamic where I'm my mom's, caretaker. Right. I'm thinking I could just be open with my medical provider. I'm not thinking it will lead to anything. So she ended up giving me the paperwork for her physical and everything. She said everything was good. She addressed my concerns because my daughter had like the blood clots in her eyes. She said that was just from like the delivery process and everything I was worried about. And probably 2 days later, I get a call from a family service counselor saying that they need to come do a well-being check on my household and the house and everything. They said it was reported by a medical professional that my state of mind wasn't up to par and that they need to come do a well-being check. So they came to the house and the lady, she was really, really nice. She was a Black woman. She was really, really nice. And she saw everything that I was going through. She saw how I cared for my mom. I was nursing my daughter. I was keeping her fed. And she just basically said, that things could have really got worse than what they were. But she was like, I understand your stress. She's like, I understand what happened. I understand your stress. And I think she had more, because of maybe her background and her culture, she understood more of that I wasn't having like a psychotic break or nothing, and that I was just dealing with a lot. Right. And I think she like, again, I feel like sometimes in the medical profession, women of color are kind of looked at as like really tough. Like it's not that we like we're women too, we're humans too, but for some reason the shade of our skin make us like we supposed to, or we can endure what we can endure. Like our bones is not made up of the same thing, or our skin is not made up of the same thing, you know. So I guess I just like completely like scared the doctor because I'm supposed to be this tough, strong Black woman, and I had an emotional, where I thought was a safe space, you know, to let out everything. She kind of wanted to get my child taken away. So, yeah, so that was that. And I would say about probably like, I would say about at 6 months, my mom's at my daughter being 6 months, my mom's situation got worse, and she ended up going on disability full time, and I was still taking in the role of caretaker, and her prognosis, she got put on hospice care at that point, saying there was nothing else they could do. She was in stage 4 cancer. And on top of that, I was dealing with this whole new mom arena again. And my daughter contracted thrush. So this is like a common thing they tell me with breastfeeding. It was like everything that was like this natural process was so weighed so much more, because it was like, okay, what else can happen? You know, like what else? So I would say in hindsight, I didn't know what postpartum depression was. It took me probably till my daughter was about 3 till I looked back and I was like, oh, that what was going on with me. I was on very much so, I can say there's big chunks of that portion when I was going through, like holes in my memory, because I was like on autopilot almost. Like I knew what I had to do every day and I just did it and just hope that I got through the day. So it was one instance where I was really, really scared because my daughter had literally cried for 2 days going on, you know, like 72 hours she had cried. And it was because of her thrash, but I just couldn't get her to stop crying. It hurted when she nursed and everything. And I was giving her a bath. And I was just like, and it was like I had this feeling where I was like looking at myself doing this. It's like I had detached from that space. And I was just like, okay. It's almost like her crying was just like numb to me. And I was just like, okay, how are we going to do this, you know?
Right.
So that's one of the instances I remember, like really like detaching from my body and just doing the task to get through. And then I remember it was like a 2-week period where I didn't shower, I didn't comb my hair. It was just like wash my mom, change my mom, clean my mom, give her medicine, wash Ava, change Ava, clean her, give her what she need. And it was just like this cycle. And I was like, and I started smelling myself and I was like, I haven't took a shower. It was literally 2 weeks that I went without showering, and so I would go in and out of like this autopilot, this kind of like to realizing that, okay, something is wrong.
Right.
You know, shaking myself, I would come in and out of it. So at 1 year old, I was like, okay, I probably have to start making ways to like, we started talking about like how I was going to transition back into work and earning an income and everything. And at 1 year old, I took my daughter to daycare to try to get her in daycare while because I was going to work part-time and then take care of my mom, share the responsibilities with my stepdad. He was taking off work, and we was just trying to get her through the hospice process. So at 1 year old, I take her to get a physical, and I find out she has lead poisoning now at this point. So her I get familiar with lead, that her number is not supposed to be over 5. And when she got tested, her number was at 54. That's what they tested her with. So it was critical high exposure. It was the night before she was getting ready to have her 1-year-old birthday party that Saturday. And that Friday, the emergency, she had her appointment, her 1-year-old physical on Thursday. Test on Thursday. The doctor actually called me on Thursday night and was like, you have to bring Ava in immediately. And I had all this stuff going on. I had like balloons I was blowing up and food I was making. She was like, no, you need to stop everything what you're doing and bring her into the hospital immediately. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? She was like, her lead levels are really high. So I'm thinking I'm just about to go into the hospital. They actually end up admitting her, and we stayed in the hospital for about a week, and they gave her this medication and everything. And I canceled everything I had coming up. She was supposed to start daycare that Monday. I was supposed to start work that Monday, and I just told them I couldn't. With everything that was going on. So she stayed in the hospital for about a week. And we couldn't leave until she was at a safe number. But what made it more complicated was she caught the lead poisoning at my mom's house because it was an older building. I was her primary caregiver, but the hospital would not let me go back to her place. And I couldn't go back with my daughter. So they basically wouldn't let us out the hospital until I had another address to give them. And I was telling them, I have to be there. I have to take care of my mom. There's no other person to take care of her. I'm supposed to do it. So we end up going to my cousin's place. We end up staying there for about a month. And it was pretty much, my cousin's place was just an address. And I was pretty much going back and forth to take care of my mom without the hospital technically knowing. But we did like do a deep cleaning and everything of the room. Now I'm working with the nurse from the Department of Health, and they have to check on me every week. I have to get a blood test every week. And now this is just like more dumped on my plate at this point. So I'm focused on all that. And then right before Ava turns 2, the March before her birthday is in August, that March before she turns 2, my mom take a turn for the worse and she passed. So that was really hard on me because I just kept thinking about the conversations we would have. And I feel like when the doctor told her that they would be moving her to hospice, I started doing research, and I was just like, okay, well, this says, people come off of hospice. I never made the connection that she would pass. So that was like a shocker for me, because even when we were doing the hospice care and she had the nurses come out, we would still just be talking about future stuff. And she'll just see Ava walking around the house and she'll be like, I can't wait to walk you to, kindergarten, or your first day of kindergarten or whatever. So I took her passing really, really hard. I dealt with a lot of guilt behind my mom's passing, because I felt like because I had my daughter, was I giving her 100% of the care that I could have gave her because I had so much stuff going on? I was really, really angry because I have 5 other siblings that couldn't be there to share that responsibility with me. So it took a lot of prayer to get over being angry at that. It took a lot of prayer for me to get over being angry at myself and not having like this resentment towards my daughter because she didn't ask to be here, but I was just like, maybe I didn't prioritize my mom, you know, maybe it was something I could have done. I could have been there more, or, you know, if I didn't have this situation. So, yeah, that was hard. And, as you can see, I'm still dealing with it, but I mean, the older my daughter gets and the more things she do, I just think about like, you know, I wish your grandma could have met you, you know, just could have known you now or whatever. So she ended up passing, and I went really, really heavy into like, just like, it kind of shook me out of like this autopilot thing, because even during her funeral arrangements and us planning and everything, it was basically like me and her husband, you know, planning everything. My siblings was involved, but they were able to grieve because I kind of always had this role amongst my siblings as the responsible one. I'm everybody's emergency contact. I'm everybody's beneficiary. And I feel like my mom knew that. I feel like that's what gave her peace. But at the same time, it was like very, very hard on me because even with her passing, I didn't get that space. Like, I had siblings that were able to go off and like be angry and, you know, or cry in the corner or whatever. And it was just like, okay, we got to go pick out a dress. We got to go pick out the casket. And I didn't have that time to like realize what was actually going on. It was just like task, like get this done, get this done, get this done. Like even I was just like, after all that, after my mom passed and after the funeral services, I was just like angry. And because I just felt like, where was my help? Like I've been a help to so many people. Like, where was my help? Like, people can't always count on me. And you just think, I feel like it taught me a lot now to just do what, I could never really be a mean person, but not to overextend myself, because I felt like I did it a lot, just knowing like, okay, if I take really good care of these people, I can count on them to be there for me, type of thing. Or if you think you kind of like, you think you're making this trade, and a lot of the times you're not. And if you don't have it to give without expecting something back, I feel like that's the hardest part, you know. So going up into that point of like, even with like writing my mom's obituary and everything, I just remember Ava being really, really cranky, and I'm pretty sure like she was absorbing all the emotions that was going on at the time. And it was hard for me to even get someone to take her while I was like, because I just need a minute, and like I'm trying to do this, but I know I have to be emotionally available for my daughter right now, but at the same time I can't. I have to do this. I have to get this done. I have to get this over with. So my best friend, her godmom, ended up coming to get her for a couple of days, and I was able to get those things finished and done. And we were able to lay my mom to rest and everything. And I kind of spiraled. I started drinking a lot. I started just like, I got to this point of a mom where I never wanted to be. Like, it was almost as if like, you're not a 30-year-old mom, you're acting like a teenage mom. Like, you trying to like drop this baby off. You like trying to go out and party. It's like I kind of like went downhill, if there is a downhill for like parenting. Like where I thought I was at when I first had her, like where I was like, how dare that doctor call CPS call a sponsor on me? It's like I should have had one at that time called on me, because I kind of like,
you were coping, is what you were doing.
I was coping. And then I would say like when she turned 3, I kind of had this I would call it like a spiritual encounter. I went to celebrate with a friend. And I think this has a lot to do with community, because I can just like I have a handful of people that I could get involved. Like, and when I say community, I mean like that positive community, because I have so many friends or family that wouldn't correct me. You know what I'm saying? That wouldn't be like, but I could call so many people that's just like, well, we're drinking over here. Okay, you don't have a babysitter. Bring your daughter over here anyway. It's like exposing her to things that she don't supposed to be exposed to. I have a handful of those, you know,
right.
2 handful of those people. But like that positive community that was like, stop, what are you doing? You know, okay, well, stay in the house if you don't have a baby. You're not going to miss nothing like that. That kind of thing I didn't have. So I was out drinking with a friend, and they tried to get me to spend the night. They were like, you know, just stay here. You've been drinking or whatever. And I end up putting my daughter in a car and driving home. And by the grace of God, we made it home. But I woke up that day and I was like, I still had like my clothes on. I had like one shoe on. My daughter wasn't in the bed with me. And I had like a small freak out. Like I was like, how did I make it home? Where's my daughter? So I ended up going into the other room, and she was like she had just fell asleep on the floor. And I was like, and I feel like I heard God tell me, like, you should be ashamed. Y'all almost didn't make it home last night. Like, how did you even make it home last night? Do you know how you even made it home last night? So that kind of like shook me to my core. And it was like, the next day I was just like really, really grateful to God for not letting, you know, not letting anything happen to us.
Right.
I don't know. I just kind of like turned everything around from that point. And just became the thing I kind of like drove away from, because I felt like after my mom passed, I was like, and I felt my anger led me to like, oh, everybody want to count on me, but let me show y'all how reckless I could be, type of thing. Like I didn't want to be the responsible person anymore. So I think I just kind of like spiraled out of control.
Right.
And after that, I kind of took ownership of it. I was like, what's wrong with like caring about another person? What's wrong with like being responsible, you know?
Right.
Even though some people abused it, and like, but if it's any time to be responsible is when you got someone really dependent on you. Like what, like I'm comparing it to taking care of grown people who can fend for themselves, but what can my daughter actually do without me? Like she needs me to be responsible. Like she needs you. This is the person that out of all these people actually needs you to be responsible. You can't spiral out of control with her. So I kind of like turned over a new leaf, and through that, once she turned like 4 and 5, it was like I embraced parenthood at that point. It was like I was so happy we started going out, hanging out together. Like, I didn't care about like not being out, you know, and having my daughter. And then that opened my world to like a better community, like, because no one really wants to be bothered with an irresponsible a person that's just like, nobody really wants to be bothered. And the people that do want to be bothered with you, nothing good is going to come out of that. So it opened my world up to a community of parents that was like, enjoy being parents, like other parents that were taking their kids to the park, and other parents, like, we end up having like these meetings and these hookups where it was like positivity.
Right.
And I didn't have to worry about what my child was being exposed to. It was like a community for her. And not just like, oh, she was tagging along type thing. So
right.
that was a good part of that. But I really thank God for intervening and just like shaking me out of that that place where I was at. Because one thing that I have to address for, I think, and this will like make it all make sense. When my mom passed, she was 21 years clean and sober from drugs and alcohol. I'm 30. I'm 30 at the time. When she passed, I was 32 at the time. So when I had my daughter, I was 30. So it could have got worse, is what I'm saying. We've been through it was periods in our childhood where things were very, very unstable. We spent time in foster care, me and my siblings. You know, by the grace of God, my mom changed her life around and came and actually got us back. But the things that we experienced in that system, even for that short period of time, kind of like shaped,
right,
you know, our lives. But I say that to say, I'm glad he intervened when he did, and not when I exposed my daughter to something that would have lasted generations, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Like, and I could have kind of repeated a cycle, and I don't feel like that was in my destiny to do, because it's like I was shooken out of that. It's like I was like violently woke up. I woke up and I was like paranoid, and I was like, it was like a reality. Like, almost for a minute, I thought my daughter wasn't in the house with me. And I think it was just all God. Like, you see what could have happened type of thing.
Right.
Because it took me a minute to find her in the other room. I have a 3-bedroom, so it took me a minute to like, and mind you, I'm like, still, I got in the middle of the night. We live in a dangerous neighborhood. It was like so many layers to us. We could have not been safe type of thing. So, yeah, I'm just really thankful about that. And then it was a prayer I prayed when I was about 8 months pregnant with my daughter, just about being a really good parent and being able to provide a roof over her head and everything. And I just feel like I'm living in it now. Like, I'm living in that prayer now. Even though it took me, I would have never, the person I was after my mom passed, I wouldn't have never even, like, I didn't even think about that prayer. I didn't even think about that I had prayed about that. It was just like, I'm about to be as reckless as I want now, because I'm being responsible didn't save my mom. Being responsible, being taking care of her, taking care of people didn't save her. Like, so what was the point?
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of like my story in a nutshell. Sorry if I ramble.
You don't ever need to apologize. I genuinely appreciate your transparency. I I have no words. I'm not even gonna try to make up any to make it sound good because you've already said everything. Like your story, it reflects so many components of what a lot of Black and brown women experience, but it feels like it was just all composited, like it just built on itself. And I thank God that He saved you and He gave you that recollection and gave you that understanding of how important your life is and kind of where things could have gone. Because without that moment for you, we wouldn't have this moment now. And
For
I don't
sure.
know who's going to watch this, but I can tell you it encouraged me. I can tell you it's going to encourage the mom, it's going to encourage our board. I'm going to share it with our board so that way they can see the depth of what it is. Like this is real. And there are mamas out there that don't have that level of community, that don't have that level of socialization, and you did it. And in all rights, you did it with the odds literally stacked against you, but you did it. And I appreciate how you made it to a point where you started to appreciate parenthood and you realized that the influences that you had, and they were coping mechanisms. You were trying to confront the fact that your mom was gone. You had done everything you could. You worked so hard. You were new parent, you were dealing with PPD, and then you were taking care of someone else who you loved. Like that, it sounds like you or your mom were, ace boon coon, like it was you two. And then to lose that part of you, but still have to be a mom and still have to prioritize your baby, and then to question it. Like there's just so many aspects of your story that I know are going to resonate with others. So I'm not going to talk over it. I might even edit myself out, to be completely honest, because like there's no reason for any extra narrative over what it is that you just said. My only last follow-up question would be, what would be your advice for mamas who are experiencing grief, mamas who are, and these are Black and brown women that are, grieving, or that are, questioning their abilities as a mom, or, dealing with postpartum depression and don't know the terminology, or, worried about mistrust, whether they can be open and vulnerable with their healthcare providers. Like, what would be your advice for those mamas?
I would say, like I said, when I saw your post on LinkedIn, if they have access to a service like you all give, like I think for some reason we got a lot of stigma against like mental health in the Black and brown community, and it's like, don't seek counsel, seek wise counsel, because like I said, I could run into so many mothers that was like, girl, you doing great, but at the same time they filling up my cup with alcohol. Like, girl, Ava is fine, like don't worry about that. Like that's kind of like enabling the very part that was like, that could have been our demise. Like I literally could have wrapped around a pole that night. Mm-hmm. Even though these people probably was just like, because I had this friend in particular was just like, you going through a lot, come have a drink, like that type of conversation. Like I would say my advice would be, seek wise counsel. Don't feel, and another thing that I struggled with was like this, trying to get my life back, like, trying to get my life back before I had a child. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, that was never really my life, because I wasn't that type of teenager in the first, so I don't really know what I was doing, like mm-hmm. what I was trying to chase after, because I never was that type of, like, even when it was just myself, I never was that irresponsible. Like mm-hmm. I didn't do that type of thing. But let go of this idea of your old life before your child. If that could be like the overall message, I would say, is that's what you have to do to get to open up the heavens for you in your next phase. Like you have to let go of like if you have this kid, and I get it, like you have this kid, you feel like, oh, I'm going to get back to this person, I'm going to get back to that. Is you have a big part of your life that's changed. There's no such thing as going back.
Mm-hmm.
Is even if God forbid something happens where you don't have your kid anymore, there's no way. Like, this is a big part of your story. And we change. The more we have a story, the more we live on this earth, we just change. It's like no way around it.
Right.
So embracing, I feel like the thing that healed me the most is embracing parenthood. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you are who you are. Yeah, I am who I am. I still have the personality traits that make me Angela. I still have these, but I'm Angela plus a parent. You know, like I am
Right.
a parent. I
Right.
am a parent. I'll never go back to a single woman. I'll never go back to an individual. I am a parent. It's just like age. Like you embrace when you 40, you embrace being 41, you embrace being 42. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you don't try to go back. That would be my advice. Like, embrace your next phase, embrace everything in your story that makes you you. Like, embrace it and be strong enough to know when, and be honest enough with yourself to know when the people you have around you are not making sense. Look at their lives and just be like, you know, okay, this is the person giving me advice. It's like, would you listen to a bald head man tell you how to grow a head of hair? No. These people are giving you advice based on like generations of bad advice. Mm-hmm. And just because you may be doing something a little bit better than the generation before you, that don't mean that your child is not still being exposed to like those generational traumas.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what I would say, like, to sum it up. Be honest with yourself. Realize when the things you've been doing and the people you've been listening to hasn't been getting you to the place you want, and embrace your new life as a parent. Embrace it. That's the only way. That's the only way to move on, is just like to embrace that part of you too. Yeah. Don't separate your life from like mom's life. This is mom's life and this is like my life when I drop my kids off, type of thing. Like, don't separate those two. Right. Live a life where your child can be incorporated fully. Like, even if it's the friends you hang out with, the men you date, like, live a life where it's not this dark part where that you ashamed of, you know, like if your child, or like, you know, you cutting loose after you dropped your child off. If your child was to come home early and walk in on you, are you doing something you would be ashamed of, type of thing? Like, just live a life that includes your kid. That's what I would say.
I love it. I genuinely and wholeheartedly, I can't thank you enough for your time and your willingness to do this and to tell your story. And I don't think it matters what voice. You probably could have used one of those weird like Google voices and had him tell your story, and it still would be powerful. But adding all of the transparency and just, I cannot thank you enough. On behalf of our organization, on behalf of other moms that are going to see this, we truly, truly thank you.
And I gotta say too, I love what y'all are doing. Like, I feel like if I had this resource, like for instance, I think back when I read your headline on, I said, what if my medical provider that day I cried out, what if she would have just gave my contact information to a certain organization like you all? You know what I'm saying? Like, it would have opened up so much, because I'm pretty sure you would have had options. Like, once, instead of that family service counselor coming to my house, or you know, from social services coming to my house, seeing everything that happened with me, and like, okay, You know, like they
Mhm.
didn't give me any, it wasn't like they gave me any resources. It
Right.
wasn't like they sent the extra caretaker to help with my mom or nothing, you know. So it's
Mhm.
like they were just looking for the bad thing. They were just
Right.
looking for the bad thing. And I feel like the phenomenal thing about your organization is it's preventive.
That's our
It's
goal.
before people get to the point where they can't take it no more.
Mhm.
Because in my situation, there was so many times where I had like cognitive thoughts of like, I cannot do this. Like,
Mhm.
I never would, I think because it's not in me, I never would like harm another human being. But and I never thought about doing that to my child. But there was instances where I was like, well, she's still a newborn. Should I just leave her here and, you know,
Right.
let them, you know, and now that she's 5, I'm like, I could not picture anybody else raising her.
Mhm.
You know, like I could not picture anyone else. Like her personality is just like everything to me. It's like she
Mhm.
got every bit of like this intelligence, and it's like my daughter is like something else. But I couldn't picture her, and it was a time where people were telling me like, we have to really watch her because of the lead poisoning. She may not have all her cognitive abilities. Oh my
Right.
God, this little girl is like light years ahead of any 5-year-old. Like
Mhm.
she's doing math, reading, all type of stuff. She solves Rubik's cubes. Like that little girl is amazing. Yeah, she's amazing.
Genius, baby. Yeah.
I couldn't imagine her just like going through that. Like, and I hear so many stories about moms and the like it's this thing about like we got to get to the point where we can look back. It stuff feels heavy when you're in the midst of it, right? It feels so heavy. You feel like it is no way. It is no way. But if you just give yourself that grace
Mhm.
to like get to where you could look back, you're gonna be like, that was nothing. Like
Right.
compared to like the what you was feeling in the moment, like. And I feel like that's just parenthood. It's like them moments, like just give yourself time. And I feel like do a mental exercise where you picture yourself looking back on this moment. And it's just like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna get through this. And sometimes it has to be day by day, sometimes minute by minute, sometimes second by second.
Mhm.
But just give yourself a moment where it's like, and I would say, look at the stuff you've been through, because half of the time, I feel like God don't make no mistakes with us. And half of the time, we are genuinely resilient. And it's like, if we look back at the things we have gotten through already, where we was feeling those same feelings of not being adequate, and you actually putting through.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And we have to be honest with each other, I think, too. I think sometimes as like you mentioned earlier when we first started that brown and black women, we have like this generational pride thing, but we have to be honest with each other. Like, of course, we seen people be strong single moms,
Right.
but be honest with each other about the part you don't see. Like you fed your kids today, you got them clothes, you got them up, and they survived another day. But when they went to bed, you was at the kitchen table crying your eyes out. Like, be honest with your daughters when they get to a point. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, you can do single parenting. Anybody can do single parenting, but daughter, let me tell you how hard it could be when you don't have these things to set up and establish. Like,
Right.
I think we not sugarcoat, but I think we just blindside each other. I think like um through like parenting, like what is it called? Like play dates, like with
Mhm.
other parents. Like I have one close friend. and we were actually childhood friends. We end up losing connection for a while and getting back. And she's like super honest just about parenthood altogether. She's like, girl, sometimes I can't stand these kids, you know? And it's like we kind of like we go back and forth like that. So
Right.
And it's just like a safe space because you get to kind of like vent, but at the same time, the advice that comes from that is like really positive. Like,
Right.
so yeah. So I think that community is really important. I love what y'all are doing. Those resources that y'all have, like, I think y'all gonna come across some people that's like really, really shameful about so I think your organization letting them know that like it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to not have it all together.
Right.
And because there is other places that tell you it's okay. Like I thought my doctor's office, it was okay, but I was almost victimized,
Mm-hmm.
by my own vulnerability, by my own, just like I was having a hard day. I was
Right.
having, and the doctor could have easily just said, I don't know. I just felt like I could have been handled a little bit more with care and humanity.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, again, no words. Just incredible, incredible, incredible story.
Thank you. I appreciate you for sharing your platform with me and just giving me that space. This is even my close friends and family, because like I said, I'm always, and I don't do it on purpose. It's just like everybody expects me to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I have close friends and family who don't even haven't even heard.
Right.
Even my best friends that was actually there in my labor and delivery, they don't know everything I experienced after I had her, when they left the hospital. So this is the first place where I actually let it all out. So I thank you for that.
We appreciate it, and it is truly to our benefit because there's just so much. There's so much that goes into being a mom.